You're watching this week's show with Dan and Mike.
This week's show.
Hello, I'm Mike.
I'm Dan, and we decided that after sort of teasing it for the last few podcasts that we wanted to talk about Sleep Token in depth.
It is a deep dive podcast.
Into Sleep Token. Though, both myself and the manager did struggle trying to do any type of research on them, because normally it's interviews that tend to give you a lot of information about the band.
There's only two.
I was going to say, a total of 2 across their entire career. Even like the likes of Ghost did more in their early career.
Well, plus everyone now knows who Ghost front singer is because he's been defrocked.
Well, interestingly enough, do you remember Trees? I think it was
they grow everywhere.
Pre-pandemic. We were talking to their original PR, Hold Tight, and they said that the identity of Sleep Token is actually out there. People just don't care about it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about Sleep Token or any kind of mass band. They get to a certain level, and people are going like, "Oh, who is Slipknot?" or who is Ghost? And then after a while, they get to such a place that they go demasked, defrocked, whatever. But Sleep Token, they just haven't.
I think it's because of the lack of any extra clarity than what you get on album, music video, and live performance.
Yeah, it's all about the art.
It's
not about not about the gossip and stuff. It's like, we'll get into it in a bit, but at the moment they're obviously gearing up for the new album coming out, which is all geared towards download and things like that. But when they first came out, it was something completely different. We hadn't heard anything. Considering they've come up through the sort of gent era and that kind of alternative heavy rock.
They even performed at Tech Fest.
Yeah, that's where we saw them, wasn't it?
One of the first times.
Yeah, with about 80 people there.
There wasn't many.
No, they were on that sort of tea time slot, weren't they, where everyone kind of...
And they were the guests.
Yeah,
as
they
well.
were the special guests. No one knew who they were, and it was just kind of, well, we'll go and get our tea then and get ready for the headliners and the main support kind of thing. Whereas we were like, this band are kicking out waves. We were playing them on the radio, and this was,
Well, I remember that Bloodsport was the moment I started paying attention to them a bit more closely. We've done other things off of Sundowning, because they had 2 EPs first, and then Sundowning the album.
Yeah, which was an awesome album.
Yeah, I mean, but so different to what they ended up doing for the next 2 albums.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same vocalist, you can tell from the voice tone that it is. But writing style-wise, Sundowning is so different to everything else.
Well, you say the voice is distinctive. It is now, but when they first came out, people were trying to work out, like, the voice sounds so familiar. That's the thing. It sounds
I remember
like
that.
This person or that person. There was a huge thing going around for ages that it was the pop star Sam Smith, who's done like the James Bond theme and he's won Brit Awards and stuff. But then someone pointed out it can't be Sam Smith because Vessel, the lead singer of Sleep Token, is a lot slimmer than Sam Smith, so it can't be him. So it's like, whoa.
Well, I remember there was a much shorter-lived rumour that it was James MacArthur.
That was a very short one.
A very short one, but it did make me smile because vocally they're very different. Like, you can tell you're listening to Sam Smith or James MacArthur rather than Vessel.
Yeah.
But I remember the thing that really got me and made me realise that we were watching something pretty interesting and different was they did the Room Below supplement to Sundowning, and that's where he did I Want to Dance with Somebody as a piano cover.
Yes.
As well as a piano cover of Bloodsport. And it showed you were saying this before we started, it showed a lot of the classical training, because the piano work.
Yeah, the musicianship is someone that has been playing and writing music since they were knee-high to a grasshopper type thing. I think the sheer amount of different styles that just seem to flow effortlessly.
Yeah.
You obviously got the rock side of the guitars and the bass and the pounding drums, but take all that away and you're just left with Vessel and maybe a click track or something, and the piano then it could be a completely different band. On the drive down to record this with you today, I was thinking, like, if you take the Vessel out of the band, where would his voice go to? And it can go absolutely anywhere. I was thinking, like, some of the breakdowns and some of the harmonies and stuff could really go well with sort of like classic liquid drum and bass, sort of like your LTJ Bookham kind of thing, where it's all about soundscapes and creating atmosphere and emotions, and then you just subtly bring the voice in over the top, which is what the late great MC Conrad used to do. He'd sing over the top to Bookham's live stuff, but then you could take Vessel and plop him into something, you know, written by Pharrell or Usher, or, you know, those big R&B numbers. Alicia Keys could duet with him easily. As
well as he would be able to hold his own on stage doing covering duty for Noah Sebastian. Because he's got the range. He doesn't scream as much as some people.
No, the screams in Sleep Token are a bit like when you say F word.
Yeah.
It's punctual. It's there. It
sits right.
You talking about is much better than what you're talking about. It gives you that punch. It's like, this means something. Whereas his screams and gutturals come from somewhere that pushes out what the lyrical content is about, because it can start off like 5 minutes of sweet harmonies and love and beautifulness, and then all of a sudden, changing the story of the song, and then it's
and you really don't know what's going to come next.
No.
Like, I remember, because my favourite track is one of the ones that you were just describing, where you strip away most of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Because my favourite track, and come at me if you think it's like the worst track to have as a favourite one.
In the comments, but whilst you're doing that, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Well, hit the mic.
But
hit myself because I'm Mike.
It was a single that we played on the last album on our show.
Oh yeah.
And it's Fall For Me.
Yes.
That's such a beautiful track, and the brave choice to actually make something so unaccompanied one of the singles as well, because it's mostly just him and the interesting vocal effects that he uses, whilst also keeping his actual voice quite clear as well.
I think it's almost double layering, isn't it, kind of, in the recording, a bit like how Marilyn Manson does it. It's double layered, but it's just slightly off kilter to give it that rasp. That's something that I've tried to do when editing our radio show. Like just a very quarter of a wave over, and it's like, no, it just sounds awful.
Yeah, same as when I have to line stuff up as well. Is that 1/10 of a second,
even less than that.
Yeah, 100th of a second, and you get an echo. It's so bad. But no, that to me, and weirdly, if we're talking about people that it reminds us of as well, I'll throw another one into the mix. Fall For Me reminds me of stuff that 1975 have done with Matt Healy.
Yeah, Matt Healy.
Yeah, because he's a good singer, he's an amazing frontman, but he actually admits that he's not the best vocalist. Like, he's not ever going to win awards for like his range or tone. But
when you've got the ego and the stage presence, sometimes stage presence outweighs the vocal ability.
I'm not going to call anybody out, but there's definitely some people that are better frontmen than they are vocalists.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know in the comments who you think, but we're not going to throw shade at anyone. But he also...
But we might like it on the socials.
But Matt Healy from 1975, he deliberately uses songs where his voice has got effects on, and it's an expression that my 77-year-old father uses, is that some people are good whether they have a mic on and a studio behind them, but some people, the microphone in the studio loves their voice. And it's people that really know how to work with vocal effects. Like, funnily enough, and one that falls into somebody that's good live and good in studio is Randy Blythe.
Yeah.
Set almost a high standard on Sacrament. If you watch the DVD like I have, is he actually delved very deeply into how current vocal effects could work for a screaming artist, and that's why the album Sacrament sounds so good. Is because he was recording lines, listening to how they sounded, and then changing based on the effects that they were using to get a better sound.
Yeah.
And I think that Vessel is somebody that not just does great things live, but he also knows how to take a vocal effect, as we were saying, and then learn to use a vocal effect as an instrument almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a few bands that I can think of that the vocals are an instrument, mainly black metal, because I can't understand what the hell you're saying.
Or even the band logo.
Yeah, but sometimes the growls and the gutturals are part of the musicianship.
Yeah.
And then you drop lyrics on as well, which is what sleeptoken do. There's the lyrical content on some of it. I think that's why they're so popular, because they're not, they don't diss anyone. It's all harmony, peace, love, worship, positivity, which is what we're all about on the Mike James Rock Show.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, there doesn't seem to be controversial lyrics or anything like that. It's like, how have they managed to go in less than a decade to playing, to 80 to 100 people at Tech Fest, which wasn't the biggest festival ever, and to now they're going to be headlining Download this year, and they're bothering the charts with their last 3 songs in
3 and 100.
Yeah, well, I think they've all topped into the top 10 at some point, but that is also without major airplay. I know we play them because we're a rock show, and that's what we do. We support and push music.
They sold out Wembley and got Download before Radio 1 really picked them up. Well,
Radio 1, I think, which is the national station.
Yeah.
Especially daytime, I listen to it. It's an at work kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the newer stuff is very much more commercial radio orientated, because it hasn't got the heavy, genty, thrashy guitars at the beginning of songs. It's all vocals and piano and stuff, which is much better suited for commercial radio.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's only happened since Caramel dropped, and it shot to #1 in the global charts for like Spotify and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think stations like Radio 1 have had to go, well, actually we should do them as a couple of spot plays, not necessarily playlisted them for their daytime radio, but spot play 2 or 3 times a week kind of thing, and see what happens.
And it's a bit like when Architects started getting Radio 1 play, is they would release heavy singles with screaming, but they've also released a couple of singles that don't have as much screaming.
Yeah.
Because it does mean that you get the daytime play. That's just smartly playing the game to get your music to more people.
Exactly.
Though you mentioned one thing which I do want to drop into, because it's something me and you, and this is only our thoughts by the way, we don't have any evidence of this, apart from one interview with Metal Hammer that Vessel did, because out of the 2, the drummer did one and Vessel did one. And it's where you understand what they're trying to worship from the mouth of Vessel himself.
Yeah.
And he says that sleep is a force that goes through every fibre of the world, and the entity that is sleep visited him in a dream, and that's where sleeptoken comes from. Now,
and he's just a vessel to
be able to
carry and push into the new world.
But worship is such an interesting thing, and this is what I noticed when we did the sold out show in our local place of Torquay, the Foundry.
Yeah, because that's again only 700 or 800 cap venue, and that was
about 3 years ago.
Yeah,
so it was post-pandemic, wasn't it?
One of the first shows we went to as a show.
After the pandemic,
yeah, after the Panny D, and it was amazing.
Well, the thing which, and I remember saying to you when we were like either going out for me to have a cigarette or for like the way home, is compared to the last time that I properly sat down and actually involved myself in their show, they had suddenly like this dark worship of sleep had started to take on a form. But it's the other thing that we reckon that they may have had some exposure to as a child, because I don't mind admitting it's part of who I am, that I was actually raised by 2 very devout Christian parents, and I was made to go to church twice on a Sunday, morning, evening, once on a Monday evening. Twice, once on a Monday evening, and then rotating monthly events within the city I lived in on a Saturday evening, where they were definitely like sort of proper like worship meets. And the thing that I could feel watching that is I would not be surprised if the person behind Vessel, the one that's come up with everything, and that's from like how they perform, the anonymity, all of that sort of stuff. I really wouldn't be surprised if he's like me and had maybe grown up with worship nights being a thing, because the idea of worship is so powerful in like every walk of life anyway.
Well, look at Ghost. I don't think they necessarily say worship, but they're very church orientated in their aesthetic. Even if it's
the Pope, like
but it's more the underside of religion, the devil and the bad things that happen. You know, why shouldn't there be a devil Pope? And I don't know, I've seen that AI of Trump, but that kind of thing. And they're only a few years older, Ghost are, than sleeptoken.
Yeah. And
they both have this aesthetic where they're hid away, and it's all about the stage performance and stuff. It's interesting that there seems to be a couple of bands per generation that are hidden away, like Slipknot, like Kiss, Mushroom Head, for instance.
More recently, Black Gold.
Yeah.
We actually happen to know who Black Gold are, but we'll never say ever online because I don't want to.
Or in person.
Yeah.
That's one of the things with sleeptoken is it's like I could quite easily find out who they are, and I'm pretty sure
it's not even that difficult.
I'm pretty sure I know who they are, and they might have even, some of the musicians in the band might have been in other bands that we've interviewed, because that's all from the same pool of musicians.
Yeah.
We could know them all quite well, probably, but as a show ourselves, we've sort of taken that stance of like, we don't need to know.
Well, if a band's doing it, to give you an idea, so the two examples I can think of is when you interviewed Mushroom Head, and it was an audio-only one.
Yes.
So, because we got to them whilst they were masked up, and they didn't want to put on masks just for an interview, because it's a lot of effort to get like the makeup done underneath and everything like that. So they asked for an audio-only one, which was hilarious for us, because we were sat in a room where we could literally see their faces.
Yeah.
And
we know who you are, Mushroom Head.
Yeah, and they were talking about they love their masks because they still get to walk down the street. I think that, if I'm not very much mistaken, they said that they get to take their kids to school.
Yeah, do the school run.
Without getting fame bothering. So too famous to be able to do stuff. And you can see what I mean by fame bothering in the likes of...
well, Corey Taylor's the prime example. It's like the way they managed to find out who he was is because of the tattoo on his neck.
And then the repeat with the new members of the tattoo on the back of the hand, only like one tiny bit. And there's too many people out there trying to find out who they are.
Well, especially now with the internet, when Slipknot first came out.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit harder to try and work out who they were. But the tattoo on Corey's neck was the thing that gave him away. He's got the same tattoo as the guy from Stone Sour, and that guitarist has got the same guitar as the guy.
And Slipknot lent into it. They still do the mask thing on stage, which I love. They've never really performed a Slipknot without masks.
No, whereas Kiss did Kiss unmasked, didn't they? Or unpainted kind of thing.
Whereas Mushroom Head have managed to maintain
anonymity.
Whereas we know something quite interesting, but we only knew it years after it happened, is before you became a big fan of Ghost and we were just deciding who took what interview, there is a download where I actually interviewed Ghost, and it was supposedly a nameless ghoul.
Well, it was in our eyes.
But
until years later,
we found out that was actually more than likely, we don't have confirmation, but it was actually more than likely Tobias Forge, who had dressed up as a ghoul
to do the interviews, because he's the writer,
and not only that, it took away the fame aspect of, you've got Papa Emirates, so he could have slightly more fun in the interviews, because he wasn't the main person, but knowing that he was actually speaking for the band as well. So it's very different ways of doing things. And I remember multiple times whilst Sleeptoken were underneath Hold Tight, we said that we would happily let Vessel control the interview that he did with us. He could, we could just ask questions and him never say anything. But that apparently was too funny and too banterish for what he wanted. but he also never actually wanted to have an interview. It was put to him, he considered it, but the answer back was, I would rather people decide their own interpretation of me as a entity, whether that's on album or on stage, but also I don't know another band that has never given up as little details about their music as sleeptoken themselves.
Yeah.
Because we are doing most of this podcast off of mine and Mike's interpretation of sleeptoken. There's no facts that we can rely to. I've quoted most of the interview that he had with Metal Hammer, and that in this day and age, to, as you say, get to the success that you have as well, because
in less than 10 years,
and they've overtaken Ghost.
They have.
Who we, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Ghost, the music, I love the aesthetic and the idea behind it.
He said it. He said he loved them. I heard it.
I love the aesthetic and the idea. I'm still not the biggest fan. Like the music, just
check out their new album. You'll love it.
I'm sure I won't. But I still respect it. I think is probably the better way of putting it.
Okay.
But
artistically, you're a fan.
Professionally, actually, as an interviewer and somebody that's part of the music industry, I can see why they're doing it. Even giving us a nameless ghoul that is technically the frontman, brilliant move. But I would have told you, God honest truth, that I would have seen Ghost as the headliner of Download before sleeptoken.
Yeah.
Like, I really thought that was going to happen.
I think it'll happen next year.
Wouldn't
I think
be
it's just the
surprised.
cycle they're on, but...
Not only that, but I would have thought that Five Finger Death Punch would have headlined Download before sleeptoken. Like, I never would have expected sleeptoken to... But, shout out again, I've said it on the podcast before, but he does a brilliant explanation. John Mahone, one of our favourite sort of similar presenters. He's an amazing crossover DJ that if you're...
He's a DJ and he is his own frontman and hype man.
Exactly.
All with headphones on.
Yeah, well, half the time he takes them off and then sprints to the front of the stage to whip people up, which I love. But he did a breakdown of why sleeptoken were headlining Download.
It's not the money they charge, it's the fact that people,
buy their tickets.
Buying the tickets. Not only that, Ghost's new album came out.
Yeah.
12 or so tracks or whatever. One track from sleeptoken, and they managed to keep them off the global #1 spot because Caramel has only been out 3 or 4 weeks at the time of recording this.
Yeah.
And it's already had nearly 40 million streams. That's just one
of the 3 tracks, yeah.
And one streaming platform. If you think you've got all the others and YouTube and
Apple
stuff.
Music, Prime Music.
It's
incredible.
It's incredible. There's just something about them that they've got into the zeitgeist, and they are appealing to the young TikTok generation,
as well as people like us. Like,
oh well, yeah. We're more. I think for us our age, we're more in it for the sort of the musicianship and the melodies, and
the worship doesn't tend to hook me as much.
No, because we've seen bands that have
done the worship
and Slayer. God things on stage, and
I mean, we've watched Parkway Drive multiple times.
Yeah.
Walk around with their aesthetic
and stuff. It's
we've done that.
Yeah. Whereas the generation now, it's much easier for them to find out who Vessel is and the rest of the members, and to come up through TikTok where everything is out there for everything. It's just it's something that's captured a whole generation. I think of you don't need to have everything out there. Just have it about the music.
Not only that, the one thing that we can't say about Slipknot, some people disagree, but whenever I say to people sleeptoken, do you know one of the most common things that I get? No, apart from that, and from both sort of sides of the equation and everything in between, is it's music to boink to.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that's not very often that a heavy band creates such sexy music that you get...
Music for lovers.
Exactly that. And don't get me wrong, there's people that have probably had a boink to Duality, and fair play to you. But it's not the thing that people say when you go, I'm a Slipknot fan, I go, yeah, that's music to boink to. Whereas if you say, have you heard of sleeptoken yet? I kid you not, at least 5 people in the last 6 months because of the fact that it's been a conversation as they're a headliner, and we're always at Download to do interviews and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, it's music to boink to.
Coitus.
Yeah, and that is incredible to have everything else we're saying as well as that.
When I was at college, like that kind of TikTok age, as they say, it was all about like Portishead and Massive Attack and stuff. That was the background whilst you were fornicating.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what mine would be, because I didn't have.
It'd be R&B, wouldn't it? Like
probably, yeah.
Big when you were at college.
That would be the sexy music of the time. Yeah. Whereas it's now sleeptoken of all things.
It's because it starts off soft and gentle and builds and builds and builds into a huge crescendo at the end.
A climax, maybe.
And then, I don't know, does Vessel get off stage and have a cigarette?
I mean, I know based on what we saw is there's a lot of people in the crowd emotionally, and I'm going to state this very carefully, emotionally climaxing with Sleeptoken.
It is very much an emotional kind of band, aren't they?
Yeah, in so many different ways. It doesn't matter what you're there for. Like I say, is for me, I don't like all of their stuff. I'm always quite honest about what, if on a deep dive, I don't like all of their music. There's bits where they lose me because I'm a metalcore kid, which means that I like my brain just being smashed to pieces by heavy drums, heavy guitars, lots of gutturals, all of that sort of stuff. But on the flip side, I really like Fool for Me,
my favourite song is Atlantic. I listened to it 3 times coming to record this. It's just like, such a good song.
But the flip side as well is like the Love You one, and that really struck me as well. That was an emotional journey listening to that one.
I think at some point, Sleep or Vessel has been very hurt by someone.
that Family Guy moment where who hurt you?
Yeah.
Who hurt you? But no, we probably should wrap up pretty soon on this, but thoughts. Do you reckon that we're going to see something new, something that really uses the fact that they're on the main stage headlining Into Darkness? Do you reckon that we're going to see something stage presence or stage production wise which is a bit different to what we've seen so far?
I'd imagine so. Because I fingers crossed we might have a drone display.
That would be incredible.
Because they have fireworks and it doesn't really necessarily affect the plane. So if you have a drone where the fireworks would be blasting off behind it, or even the other side of the main road, the other, all you got to do is line up your drones in the
right place,
right place, and it goes up, and you'd be able to see it from miles away. But I think something like that possibly, or the thing with Download is you can't really have the huge power lasers because you've got the aeroplanes that
the ground.
Yeah, the stage lights and stuff only goes so far, whereas big lasers to cover that amount of space in a big field of Download would affect the planes coming in.
We know what a set like that's like from when we went to Boomtown and it was nothing but lasers. Yeah. They're not underneath a flight path. So I reckon you could be right. Drone display could actually be the thing that we're looking at.
They had one at Glastonbury last year, not Sleeptoken, but Glastonbury had a drone display, and they seem to be quite popular in the festivals in the States as well. So
you never know. Andy Coppin, who tends to be in charge of the yes/no of things like that, literally
the boss
stole Metallica's towers because it increased the watching experience. He didn't, by the way, steal them.
One at a time.
Let's lift. But he, after Metallica brought those visual towers, he realised how much it improved the experience for everybody that was at Download. So that's now a Download mainstay, is because you could be at the top of the hill and you see better on the tower screens in many ways than you do the screens next to the stage. I also happen to know he likes Download stage to look like it does. That's like an aesthetic that he keeps.
Yes, the totem poles at the side and stuff.
Yeah, and like having the old classic of totem poles next to your screens, the drop down, because Reading obviously has the wraparound screens, which is a bit different.
Well, they've also now got the lighting rig that goes over, like the netting lighting rig, there's a screen bit.
Exactly, so I'm thinking
the tech is there to be able to do absolutely anything nowadays.
But if it doesn't happen, then we would say that the call is that it's actually a safety issue for the nearby airport, because Donington Airport is hugely busy.
East Midlands, yeah, it's where DHL are based and
exactly.
things like that.
And we know that because of the year that the press camping was directly underneath the Jumbo approach strip. And
oh yeah, I tried to put that in my mind.
yeah, we would get the throttle back sort of vibrations as the plane lands, obviously.
Throttles the engine back in.
But it actually does the opposite of creating less noise, because they're using the engines to slow themselves down. Oh my god, I did not sleep at download 20, the 5-dayer. Like, by the end of it, we were so exhausted and
strung out. Yeah.
So that'll be my call, is that I'm hoping that they do something, but if it doesn't happen, it's probably down to the fact that it's not actually safety viable for where the site is.
But also, they could do something a bit like Tall or 9 Inch Nails that are quite minimalist in what they do, and just have the lights on the stage.
You never know. They could. They're almost trying to get away from the festival feeling and make it
intimate.
Yeah.
Which means if you're at the back of the festival site, then it's just about listening.
And not only that, the VDJ, as long as it doesn't go full Tool where he wasn't on any of the screens, I think that would take the experience away for too many people.
Yeah, I think actually, yeah, the screens probably would need to be, maybe not all the time, because some bands use the screens as part of their wider stage aesthetic. So, you know, you've got flames going 100 yards on screen, whereas if you don't have the screens on and you just have the vocalist every now and then, not on every song, it'll add punch to it, I think.
I think we should probably do a follow-up at some point as to what our thoughts are, having seen it.
Well, that'll be the podcast for the highlights of download.
Definitely going to cover that. So that's our deep dive. That's just two people that have been watching Sleep Token since pretty much they started.
Yes, the new album is out imminently. There's been 3 tracks out there. Awesome. It's definitely they're hitting their, I want to say pop era, but I mean in popular era, as in they are popular. So they're now bothering the charts, which is great. We
love it when a band that we consider part of our sort of heavy part of the music industry is getting out there and getting the message there.
It is.
Cool.
They've done it in such a novel and different way. And hopefully, you know, the kids that are into Sleep Token now might go and discover a Lamb of God or
create the next Sleep Token in 5 to 10 years' time.
Yeah, but with Sleep Token they might go and become a hip-hop artist or R&B or a gospel singer, because they incorporate it all.
Yeah.
2 mic hits
and
in the
definitely time to say goodbye before that poor microphone gives up. Anyway, make sure you tune in from this point onwards, because we've got warm-up shows, backstage shows and highlight shows for every festival that we're attending this year.
Yes, we have.
Make sure you're there.
Peace!
Yo. So me and Leo would like to thank you for watching our deep dive into Sleep Token. Do let us know in the comments anything that we missed, anything important about Sleep Token that you want to make sure that we know about if we come back to this deep dive. I think we might have like 1 album club left before we get into what we're saying on the podcast, which is all of the hype pre-shows, the backstage shows, and then the highlight shows. And hopefully maybe a little bit more of a special guest here on another podcast as well. Hello, buddy.